ladies and gentlemen, live on our stage, we are joined by the presence of the man himself.
Yes.
The other half of the Drinkchamps, the man himself, the man, the myth, the legend. Ladies and gentlemen, DJ EFN. What's up, my man?
It's an honor. It's an honor, man.
What's
Thank
up?
you,
What's up, man? No, man. Come on, man. Listen, this is really cool, man. Like I tell everybody, the reason why I decided to do the podcast is because I've been around for a long time, but I really didn't know anybody because I just kind of been reclusive. But this has given me a chance to meet people. So this is an honor, man, because I've been watching you guys. I watch you guys all the time. You know, I see the show. I saw a lot of different, the episodes. I don't drink or smoke, but tell us how you got into the whole situation of doing podcasts, because this is new for me too.
I mean, it was just a matter of trying to pivot into different things, to keep the dream alive is the basics of it. Being, in the music industry, being from Miami, Florida, it wasn't necessarily an easy in to get into the industry. So I was always trying to find different lanes that could produce revenue to basically support what I was trying to do is just make music with my homies. And that wasn't making any money. So we had to find money to make a living. And eventually, I've done everything under the sun, marketing, promotions.
I read your bio. Yeah.
Everything. And then, podcasting came to me, and I could tell you the whole story of Drink Champs, but I had the opportunity. It was presented to me to do a podcast with N.O.R.E, and I had to actually convince N.O.R.E. He didn't know what a podcast was at the time. It was still new to me as well at that point. And it took a couple of years to convince him of to do a podcast. Because it seemed like in that time, especially for hip hop, it was considered like this nerdy internet computer thing that hip hop didn't really, dive into. And when I finally got him on board, I mean, the rest is history. We were thankfully an out the box, success. We caught lightning in a bottle, man. We were lucky.
Definitely. How'd y'all come up? Who came up with the name, man?
So, I mean, in short, my crew kind of came up with the name, but it happened simultaneously hanging out with N.O.R.E. N.O.R.E. moved down to Miami. I'm in Miami, Florida.
Right.
He left New York, moved down to Miami. He was working out of my studio.
Right.
And in those studio sessions, they're drinking, they're smoking. Right. And my crew, we were heavy drinkers. So if you couldn't handle your liquor, we would say, you're not a drink champ. And that was just the thing. Like, you're not a drink champ. I'm a drink champ. You're not a drink champ. And I thought that was a dope name. I just love the name. And back then, I'm talking about like years before it would even become a podcast. I didn't know what it would be. I went and said, let me see if anybody has a .com of this. Because it could be a clothing brand. It could be a bar. It could be whatever. So drinkchamp.com was available. And then Drink Champs also. So I grabbed both of them. Grabbed the Instagram, grabbed the Twitter. And then fast forward, when it came to do the podcast, and N.O.R.E. was ready, I said, look, I got this name ready to go. We already drink, and it's a part of our lifestyle in a sense.
Right.
And we're gonna drink on the show because we had done a radio internet show before, satellite show on XM and Sirius XM, and we used to drink a lot on that show. So he was like, all right, cool, let's run with Drink Champs, and the rest is history.
Great, man. N.O.R.E. is cool people because I used to live with him up here in Jersey in the Galaxy when he was living up here and stuff. So I used to run into him and stuff all the time. Yeah,
he's a great dude.
That's cool, man. But I want to think, man, you always find a way to keep reinventing yourself. You know what I mean? In terms of trying to make things work. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I want to commend you on that.
Oh,
man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
No doubt.
Man.
So, EFN, I have a question for you. One, I want to make sure I'm saying your DJ name right. So say it for me, because I've been working on this.
No, you've been saying it perfect. EFN, which
EFN, right?
Which most people don't. They say effing. Even people that know me, they can't help themselves but say effing.
Right. So you don't mind if I say E, right? You don't mind if I say E?
All my friends call me E. My name is Eric. My DJ name is my initials of my full name.
Right.
So E is perfectly normal for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Y'all don't understand. I'm like I always feel like I'm so awkward with the whole situation of making sure that I do right, because I'm like I said, I'm trying to get into the 21st century. So all morning long I was walking around talking about, I gotta say this right, EFN, and I ended up saying it right. So right on, perfect. Shut up.
Nah, I appreciate that.
So E, let me ask you this question: what's your Rapper's Delight story? We ask everybody that comes on the show this question: what's your Rapper's Delight story?
I mean, even though I got the white beard, I'm still a little younger in terms of like when the record came out. But for me, being an aspiring DJ, that record was just the best record to play. You know, it don't matter at what era, because it's just such an amazing record to play. And I just remember having that record, and like I had a small record box that had like 20 records in it, and that was one of the records. And I remember saying to myself, one day I'm gonna fill this crate up, one day. And then I ended up having like 30,000 records. But so I just remember just playing that record in my apartment, in my room, annoying my mom, and I loved bringing it back and back, and I'm looping it and just playing. You know, that record is long, so I'm having fun with that record. You could easily you could go like an hour if you're trying to like mess with scratch and do cuts and stuff. So I just remember just loving that record, man, and it's just always a feel good record. And I started to really spin heavy in the clubs and do stuff in the mid 90s, early to mid 90s. That's the era that I'm from. And I remember playing that record in the club like it just came out every time. And just people and it never stopped getting people on the dance floor. And that's what's so dope about that record, man.
Right. So you born and raised in Miami?
Born in Los Angeles and ended up growing up in Miami. I still got roots in LA and family and stuff. But I came out here in like the mid to late 80s and stayed out here and grew up out here.
That's what's up.
The crazy thing about Rapper's Delight is that it continues to like go generational. You know what I mean? Like you said, there's like no place that we've been in the world that like we can't strike up on the song, and even if people don't know it, they know it when they hear it. You know what I mean by that?
I think that record is beyond classic. Yeah, like it's an iconic record.
Right.
That stamps more than just when you guys put it out. I feel like people feel like that record came out when they was, whatever era they're from, because it's just so iconic.
Even Puffy said it, he was on the podcast with Khaled and Fat Joe, and I think Khaled asked him, what was his most iconic songs, and Rapper's Delight was one of the first songs that came out of his mouth. Yeah, basically.
Well, it put hip hop on the world stage. I mean, that's without a doubt. We all know this already. And if you don't know this, you need to, dig in the crates and research, dig in your Googles or something.
What did Puffy tell them kids? What do you mean you don't know who the Sugar Hill Gang is?
Right. So E, when you made the move from Cali to Miami, was it to pursue your career, or you just wanted to have a different scene, or you wanted a fresh start, or
No, I was a kid. I was a little kid. My parents had separated when I was really young in LA, and my dad moved over here to Miami in the heyday of the cocaine cowboys. And he's a Cuban, Marine, Vietnam vet, so he was getting into all kinds of craziness in Miami. And my parents tried to work it out, and we would come back and forth to Miami. I was like, I don't know, maybe started coming here when I was like 6 years old, and we ended up staying out here when I was around 10 or 11. So yeah, I was dragged out here by my mom, and we just ended up staying out here. My mom was just done. We had moved back and forth like 3 or 4 times, and she was it was just over it, and she just set up shop here, and the rest is history. I hated Miami when I got here.
Yeah.
Even though I'm Cuban, and Miami's like the mecca of Cubans and the Cuban exile community, but I was born in LA and I grew up in LA, and LA is a different type of vibe. So I, as a kid, I had my friends in LA. So when I came to Miami and then associated with the craziness that my parents and my dad had PTSD and all the craziness that comes along with that, I wasn't vibing with Miami. But when, once I grew up and started having friends, going to high school and doing all that stuff, then, Miami, definitely became my home.
No doubt. Time we got off the plane, man, we always hit Wet Willies.
Yeah, Wet Willies ain't no joke. That's Superman.
That one's over my head too. Let me ask you a question. What is one of your one of your weirdest situations on the podcast? Because I find, because this is why I asked the question, because during this just even at this level, it's still very a unique situation to talk to different people and go from one point to the next. You guys got millions of people that you know, they're subscribed to the podcast, and then you have everybody, you know, watching it on Revolt. So, and you've interviewed. I mean, you guys have had everybody on there. I mean, God, I mean, I've seen. There's like no person that I haven't seen. You guys have Floyd Mayweather on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
I was like, wow, Floyd Mayweather doing it. So, what was your most weird experience? Yeah.
You said like the weirdest experience?
Yeah, weird. Not who's the best, because people always ask me,
Right.
"What's your favorite place in the world?" No, I want to know what the other side of it is. What's your weirdest experience?
The most awkward experience was with Lamar Odom,
Really?
the basketball player. Yeah, because he's a recovering addict of sorts.
Right.
And he came to the show, and it got really weird and awkward, and then we took a lot of backlash from it, because people were like, "Why would you invite a recovering addict?" But we have had people who are recovering addicts, which I think is really dope to have people on there dry, you know, sober, and then we're drinking and they're sober, and it shows that you can, you know, as a recovering, you know, alcoholic or drug addict, whatever, you could still be in those rooms and not have to succumb to that.
Right.
And for whatever reason, that didn't happen for him. And you know, and we didn't, you know, he's a grown man, so the way we took it is like, well, he's gonna do what he wants to do, and it just got really awkward.
Right.
And you know, we got a back
straight in, huh?
He went. I think he came in straight in already. You know, like
right.
He wasn't sober when he got there, and all due respect to him as well. You know, because I don't take lightly addiction or mental health or any of that stuff.
No.
So when we got the backlash, I understood the backlash, but at the same token, I was trying to, you know, defend ourselves and say, look, guys, he came with an entourage of adults that could have easily stepped in, pulled him to the side, or stopped something.
Without a doubt.
And you know, and that was to me the most awkward, because at the end of the day, I understand, I'm conscious at least, that Drink Champs is a pretty big platform, and I don't want our legacy to be that we perpetuated alcoholism.
Right.
You know,
I got you.
Which in this world of cancel culture could happen at any moment.
Right. Absolutely.
But like you said, a grown person is supposed to be able to just say, like, gee, I don't care where we've been around this world, around this country, around whatever. And we've been around some pretty persistent people who actually get mad at you if you don't drink with them. And G's like, look, I don't drink.
That's not my thing, you know.
They get offended. They get offended. Yeah.
But that's my, you know. But at the end of the day,
you go to the bar, you have drinks waiting for you. But E, what I would like to know, man, is that basically, of course, we just lost a legend this past weekend, Larry King, which is the king of talk show hosts. Did you draw anything from him, or who did you draw from really to kind of help you? Because I would like to pick your brain in terms of kind of helping us with our podcast, in terms of when you interview a guest. I mean, what are some of the main things that you look to pull out of the guest?
Well, I'm lucky.
What are the do's and the don'ts?
Well, the thing is, I'm lucky because I got N.O.R.E to the side, and he helps lead those conversations, and he's a character, and that's why we're a perfect matchup. I like to say we're the MC and DJ of podcasting. We're the Eric B and Rakim. You know, I play my role, he plays his role perfectly. And personally, I mean, you know, rest in peace, Larry King, or even going back, like I remember watching a lot of old stuff like Walter Cronkite and people like that, you know. But I never came into this saying to myself, I want to like be a journalist, or I want to be an interviewer per se. I didn't want to do that, and I wouldn't have done that necessarily. But what I did want to do is be able to sit down and chop it up with some people I look up to, some legends, some, you know, or like-minded folks or whatever, and just chop it up about this culture that we love so much, and have it be just a seamless conversation, and have jokes and have some serious moments, and have it all just like if I was sitting down talking to them in the studio, or if I'm at the barbershop or with my homies or whatever. That's the type of vibe I want out of these conversations. And so sometimes people will criticize and be like, oh, well, you didn't ask a hard question. I'll be like, we're not the platform for that. We're not the journalist. You know, I didn't go to journalism school. I'm a DJ that happens to be sitting now at the table with this opportunity to talk to people, and we're going to get some dope stuff out of them, but it's going to be organic, you know, one way or the other.
Yeah, we try to make that happen too. And with that being said, one of the advantages, again, of being able to talk to people now, as opposed to, again, the fact that I, you know, for many years didn't even have my experiences, I want to talk about the mixtape. And this is something that, I mean, I jotted this down when I was taking my notes. You know, I come from the whole situation where, you know, even though it was going on in New York, I was in that New Jersey area. I had a DJ group. Mike's group was another DJ group. The long and short of it was, I went from being a DJ in my neighborhood of Englewood, Hackensack, and Teaneck to touring the world and going to Soul Train. So I say that to say that there's a lot that I've missed in the hip hop thing. Talk to me about the mixtape. Give me that whole what's the origin of a mixtape? Tell me about it.
I mean, I think if you ask the origin or what a mixtape means to people, I think becomes generational now. Okay. You know, because if you ask a kid today, they're gonna say to you a mixtape is an artist that just recorded over other people's beats and made an album. And that's a mixtape. That's not a mixtape to me.
That's what I'm asking you.
The origin for me of a mixtape is I'm listening to recorded parties, you know, house parties, park jams. Those are the, you know, just the fact that there's a DJ out there with turntables and someone records that and then passes that tape around, that became the first mixtapes I heard. Because to me, it was just amazing to be able to hear records mixed and cut and manipulated. That was an amazing thing to me at that time, you know, as a kid. Okay. So those are the first mixtapes I'm getting. And then later on, the evolution became the mixtape DJ, where he's basically making compilation albums, you know, for every time he releases a mixtape, and he's breaking records or he's putting on new artists to do freestyles. And that's kind of like the era I come from. And so that's what the mixtape meant to me, was a DJ doing mixes, playing underground exclusive stuff, having artists do freestyles on the mixtape, and just introducing always the new music to the audience, you know. And sometimes it wasn't new music. Sometimes a mixtape, you know, of something of the 80s or whatever, but DJ mixes that were done and produced kind of like a compilation album.
Right.
You know, and then later on, like I said, once the tape era ended and the CD era came and you could skip tracks, to me that ended the era of true mixtapes, because you bought into a DJ style. And when you had the tape, you can't just easily fast forward. You want to be into that, how he mixed, how he cut, if he talked, does he not talk, does he talk? You know, who does what format does he use? So once the CD came into play, that ended the mixtapes to me.
Yep.
And so that's the way I saw mixtapes.
That's very interesting, because, you know, in the 90s is when I started really getting hip to the mixtape, because they were talking about, you know, like 50, you know, they was talking about, you know, he had this crazy mixtape, and, you know, that's what kind of opened up everybody to him. And then, like you said, and so just talking to you now, it's almost like, it's like when I was doing parties, you know, it's just like somebody recording me doing the party, basically the way I would spin dress to the drummer's beat into,
that's a mixtape
something
to me.
else.
Or the origins, at least.
And then throw the sound effect in. It was my style of blending and working with the music. Somebody recorded it and then, you know, got it out to the public beyond the party. So that's really what's happening. Right on. Okay.
Like shout to Kid Capri was the first mixtapes I started getting of live shows.
Right.
You know, it was
right. Oh, okay.
Right.
That's what's up. You know, no question about that. So E, tell me, how did you and N.O.R.E, you know, became so tight? Y'all, I mean, watching the show, you brothers are like, you know, like you like brothers, man. I mean, like you said, you know, like Eric B and Rakim for real.
Yeah, and we're definitely yin and yang, but we're definitely brothers for sure. It started, I had a store called Crazy Goods in the mid 90s, 97 to be exact. I opened the store. And in that era, when an artist came into town, they did promo runs. They would do in stores. They would go to either record stores, or if there was like a hip hop type of store, they would go to. So I had a hip hop clothing store, and the promoter brought N.O.R.E. N.O.R.E was doing the promo run for the Capone and Noriega album. Capone was locked up at the time, so it was just N.O.R.E.
Right.
And he came over, and I had a little 4-track, which I actually have in front of me, a digital 4-track that I used to record freestyles for my mixtapes. And so he came by, and I already knew who he was. Capone Noriega was buzzing in the underground heavy. And also the fact that he was flipping some Spanish. So, you know, Latinos, if we hear any inkling of Spanish, we jump, oh man, he's Latino, you know? So I already knew. I was like, oh, this Puerto Rican brother coming through. So he came through, dropped some freestyles, and we hit it off. I mean, I don't know. It's funny because looking back, it's like, why did we hit it off? I don't really know, you know, but I think he was smart enough he was building a network in every city that he went to. and he would build those relationships. So I think that was smart on his part.
Absolutely.
And then the same thing for me. I'm trying to build my network up. And so we just maintained a relationship. He was on all my mixtapes. I did his first solo show in Miami when he dropped his solo album. I did that.
Okay.
And then when Capone got out of prison, they hired me to put an event together for his first show in Miami out of prison.
Right.
So needless to say, we maintained that relationship. And at one point he did a reggaeton album. And I wasn't really into reggaeton, even though I'm Latino. I was like, that wasn't my thing. I was straight into hip hop. And he knew that. So when after that album, he moved to Miami and he said, yo, E, bring me back to hip hop. And we were just working in my studio. And that's from imagine, we met in 97 all the way to today, you know? So you got those years,
great, man.
Build a bond and a friendship. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause and another thing, I want to commend you guys for having a dream and sticking to it, because I realized that it didn't happen for you guys right away. And
No, not at all.
Y'all stayed committed and y'all stuck to it, and look where you guys are. I mean, how did you end up with Revolt?
So Revolt was a situation where N.O.R.E, you know, he knew Puff already. And, you know, Puff owns Revolt. But I had a relationship over there because I do this documentary series where I travel the world and I kind of like link with the hip hop community.
Hip hop, Nate.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. So the first film I did was Cuba, you know, following my family roots. And right out the gate, it was the first film I ever did, amateur filmmaker. And my boy that was at the newly formed Revolt before they launched, he said, we looking for stuff like that. And he brought it to Revolt and they picked it up. They licensed it. First film I ever did in my life.
Wow.
And so that was 2 years prior to Drink Champs. So I already had that relationship.
Wow.
By the time Drink Champs started, I had done my third film. I did Peru and then I did Haiti, and they had licensed those films as well.
Right.
And so I already had that relationship. So between that relationship and N.O.R.E's relationship with Puff, it just became a seamless marriage. Like, let's take your podcast to linear, to television. And we did the television deal with them, which I think in hip hop, at least in podcasting, at least in hip hop podcasting, that was the first of that kind of deal for a hip hop podcaster.
In your whole thing, you know, like not including Drink Champs, like the podcast out there with hip hop and everything else that's going on, what would you say is your top 5? Like who do you like right now to watch yourself?
Oh man, that's a tough question. Like who do I like to check out in terms of podcasting?
Yeah. Like who you want to hear to get the information from? You like, oh damn, I gotta peep this.
Yo, I've been checking out this
Sugarhillgang. No.
100%. Let me tell you really quick.
I've been learning from you guys, man.
Before I answer that question, if you would have told the kid that was getting that Kid Capri mixtape recorded that in the future I would be sitting down talking to you guys, I would have said, you're crazy. Get the fuck out of here. What drugs are you on right now? Like, so this is fucking amazing for me. First and foremost, I want you to know that it's an honor for me to be here with you guys. But in terms of checking out podcasts, I listened to this crazy dude that he's an MIT like engineer called Lex Friedman. I found out about him through the Joe Rogan podcast, and then he interviews he interviews scientists and philosophers, and I don't check out the whole podcast. I watch the bits on YouTube when they put the clips, but he be having some wild people. They talking aliens and this and robotics.
Yeah,
like I'm so in hip hop that sometimes I just gotta watch things that are not hip hop so I could just diversify.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. That's crazy, because it's almost like when you say, like, I hear you and N.O.R.E already speak on, like when he go out and sometime and y'all not doing the podcast, everybody say, yo man, have a drink. I said, no, I don't want to drink. You know, because you're drinking, you're on your day off, you know.
You know, when you was talking about your documentaries before, you know, I was really interested in you know, like the way that these all went, because the stories are all kind of similar when you check out the struggles in each country, and that's where it comes from. It usually comes from the bottom. It's something that they really, it's tribal. It's almost like, you know, from the inner earth. You know, can you speak some more on that, man?
I'm telling you, I've never felt more of a camaraderie with people than linking with the hip hop community in every country. And the thing is what happens is usually in these neighborhoods, they see outsiders with cameras as people that are trying to exploit them and show, oh, look how poor they are, or look how hood this is and how crazy. Because a lot of networks and a lot of shows do that. But when they realize that I'm a DJ, my other boy that's with me is a producer, other one's an MC. You know, everybody here, we all have roles within hip hop culture, and we just happen to be making a film. It's instantaneous, the connection. And I don't even do a lot of research before I go, and I don't try to do a lot of like setting up interviews. What happens is we set up like one in the beginning, and then that person starts to open up the doors and tell everybody, yo, these people are legit, and you'd be amazed as to the places we can go that tourists can definitely not go. And
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, has it been any countries that pushed back on you, didn't want you to do
it? Well, I mean, we go in guerrilla style, so if it's like from the top, like government-wise, nobody. We almost didn't get into Cuba though, because at that time we went before Obama opened it up, and we had this like letter that supposedly was a cultural exchange letter, and when we got to the to the airport, they're like, this letter don't mean nothing. And they had us waiting there for like 2 hours. They made us wait for like 2 hours. But then it was kind of crazy because after 2 hours, they're like, "I give us some money, and you can go in."
Right. Yeah. Right.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
the reason why I asked, because like we were on tour one time, and I think we were in I don't know, was it Israel D or somewhere? Why the guy told us that they would get arrested if they got caught rapping on the street corner or something like that.
Oh yeah. That's something more cultural and religious. If you go to
Slovenia, you might be talking about Slovenia. You might be talking about Slovenia when we were in Slovenia, and they were saying that it was a criminal offense to listen to hip hop music.
They would get arrested,
and they would like sneak, like they didn't hear Sugarhill till the 90s, and they didn't start hearing my music. They weren't listening to us until the 90s, when the music had come out in the 80s, because all during that time it was all considered a criminal offense. So that was pretty crazy. If you had an opportunity to produce somebody, which I'm sure you do, if you had an opportunity to produce somebody right now outside of hip hop, who would it be?
Produce music or a podcast?
Whatever.
Oh man, I would want to do something with Public Enemy.
Really?
Yeah.
Out of everybody.
Yeah, man. Between Public Enemy and NWA, those two groups were pivotal in me really being as passionate about the culture. And Chuck D, I think, is amazing, and
no question.
But I would want to be able to have access to the entire group, including Terminator X, Flavor Flav,
and you gotta have Flav.
I want the whole, the whole group.
All of them. Yeah.
That's a good.
Hank Shockley, all of them.
Right. Go ahead, G. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to ask him. I'm shifting gears a little bit, because the introduction to the whole podcast thing, I'm kind of like a little bit of student of like the world in itself, and I do a lot of reading and research. Joe Rogan and his effect on the world of podcasting. Everybody knows his deal, his meteoric deal that he got with Spotify, et cetera, and on and on and on. Is it all about, like, is he like the one that was like the breakout star that really made podcasts popular? Do you think, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think he's one of the most successful, definitely. But there's a lot of other guys and girls that were doing it before or around him. He's one of those first people to really maybe start to make some real money doing it independently also as well, before he did the Spotify deal. But there was a lot of other people that were doing stuff around the time and maybe a little bit before. And remember, the first iteration of podcasting is internet radio.
Right. I was going to say that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that were doing that before that had some success as well.
Because you're right. Because earlier in the like late '90s, going into the early 2000s, people started talking to me about that. They were like, "Oh yeah, man, I'm doing this internet radio show." And me being a dinosaur at the time, I was like, I don't want to talk about that internet because I'm still trying to figure out how to work a computer at that point in my life.
Right.
I'll be 60 years old next year. So I mean, to me, it's like that was like a foreign territory. So internet radio and internet period. Doing that, I wasn't really paying attention to that. Then in like 2000, what was it, 9 or 10, y'all? We did like a little internet television show. It was like an early podcast.
Raw Sugar.
It was called Raw Sugar, and it's basically the same thing we're doing now, but we were doing it at a studio in the
down
on Wall Street. Down on Wall Street, in the studio. So, but it was still, like I said, 9 and 10, and it was early before everything exploded. So I still wasn't, really like getting it at that point. And then now here we are, in the 2020 and 2021. And like I said, you got guys like yourself and Joe Rogan that are hugely successful doing this, and we're back doing it. So I just, I'm very interested in that whole concept of the podcast because it's become the next, great frontier. Would you agree?
No, I agree, and especially even more so with the whole pandemic and quarantining and
man.
Digital content reigns supreme now because it's just easier to produce and easier to release and distribute. So it is the new frontier now. The only thing that I feel bad for anybody that's new getting into it, I mean, like that doesn't have a name already, some kind of background that people already know them from, it's like super oversaturated. Right. No, not you guys. I'm talking about the Joe Schmo that says I want to do a podcast, and
I got you.
and I give advice to people all the time. I said, don't be discouraged and not do it, because what's dope about podcasting, I think everybody has something to say, so you might as well just we have the technology to record yourself and do it, but understand that now the revenue side of making money off of podcasting has changed because so many people jumped into it. It's oversaturated. You have huge celebrities. I mean, look at Jada Pinkett Smith does the red table thing.
The round table. Your red table.
The round, so even though it's not it's like a blurred line between what's a podcast and what's not. But anything that's digital content, it's all kind of like the same,
Exactly. Well, one of the things, man, that I find it interesting that you guys spoke about on one of your shows, maybe you could elaborate a little bit more, go a little bit deeper into it, was the fact that you said something very interesting in terms of like now that artists, you think that companies like AT&T and Sprint are going to be the new record labels now, because what they do is just pay the artists. What they do is that they rent the artist's image, or could you explain a little bit more about that?
I mean, part of it, I think one of the first people to do it was Jay-Z. I don't know if it was T-Mobile who he did it with, but they licensed an album and they had an exclusive period. And they say, if you get this new phone, you get the album before anybody else, something like that. And so those are the type of creative deals that are being, forged now moving forward. Like,
like my man with McDonald's, what's his name? The artist,
Travis Scott.
Travis Scott with McDonald's and stuff. He's making a ton of money off of that.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like even the stuff that hasn't happened, I think there's a lot of opportunities now for creative people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with Samsung.
It was Samsung.
Yep. So I think there's a lot of opportunities now for us as the creators of music or art or whatever to kind of start finding these deals and ourselves create these deals with these companies, because these companies, they need the cool. They need us. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there and stuff that we just don't even know. It's a matter of just thinking like, maybe I could do a collaboration with such and such company, and you kind of tell them, and then, you figure it out. But I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Most times I felt like, and I've seen that with corporate America, just corporate period, they want to be told what they need. They have the money and they have the juggernaut, but they don't know exactly what it is until somebody presents it to them. And then they'll go, oh, yeah, based on when they do their research. So you tell them about it, then they'll go back and they'll have their people look into it, and then they'll come back and be like, yeah, it's a great idea. But initially they didn't say, oh, yeah, let's do this. Right. You know what I mean? But I'm going to flip the script right here, man, because we're going to stay within the confines. Do you have any questions for the Sugarhill gang?
I do, man. I do. And trying to see how, and I'm sure you guys have probably had the answers a bunch of times.
Doesn't matter. It's okay.
But can you tell me what was the whole story behind the stuff with Grandmaster Caz?
Okay. I knew it was coming. I knew you were going to ask me this question.
Yeah.
Break it down.
Okay. So here's the deal. When we presented with the record, the idea to do the record, of course I wrote all my raps and Mike wrote all his stuff. And we knew Hank because he was from the Bronx and we were in Jersey. The long and short of it was, when he came to Jersey, his reputation was he was a rapper. So we assumed, because of course, you know, as a rapper, you wrote your own rhymes. That was the deal. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Right.
We assumed because he was from the Bronx, he wrote his own rhymes too. But it was two different worlds. We talking about 1979.
Right.
It was two different worlds. So if he said I'm a rapper from the Bronx, I'm growing up in the suburbs of Englewood, New Jersey. I'm okay. You say so. I mean, you a rapper. So we get on the record, we cut the record. Now the record comes out. The record explodes. It's huge. All of a sudden, my first inclination of it was we was getting ready to write for the album. So I'm like, okay, I'm writing my stuff. Mike's writing his stuff. Hank got one line. I'm like, damn, well, come on, man. You wrote these great rhymes. I'm the CA. And again, not even thinking I'm the CAS and the OVA and the rest is FLY. He's spelling somebody else's name. I thought he was saying he was Casanova and he was Fly. That's what I thought was going on. So then it all came out. So according to what I hear, and this is my take on the whole thing, and we also have to put in the fact that because it was the first record, because there was no such thing as a publishing deal, there was no such thing as writer's credits, none of that was even established. From what we hear, allegedly, Hank went to Caz and said, I'm doing this thing over in Jersey or whatever, and I need some rides. And he said that Caz threw him the book. I think, this is my interpretation, because I know Hank was he was like the bouncer, or he rolled with them or whatever. This is the Cold Crush.
The manager,
shout out to the
right.
Cold Crush.
Right.
Yeah, he was like the manager, and he heard the raps. And so what he was trying to do, because Hank was a bit of a storyteller, period. We found that out later. But he would come over to Jersey and he'd recite the raps that he heard them doing. So I think he did the record, he did the raps because it was all one situation. And then he went over there and said something to Caz. But by then, I think the record, it had already happened. So that's the long and short of it. We didn't know that he was doing what he did until everything happened. And so that's why we're wrote with this whole thing. And that's why I tell people all the time, everything that I do, everything that Mike's done, 98% of everything that we recorded, Mike and I co-wrote and et cetera, on and on.
Right.
But yes, that was the deal with Hank.
And you know what?
So right away, go ahead.
Before Hank died, he wanted to clear it up while he was in the hospital. I even I was trying to get him to videotape something just to play to the world, because that was a big thing with him. And we talked about it. I said, Hank, if you just say something, because give the man his credit due, even if they can't even get the monetary thing back, regardless of it, give the man his credit, because you're not saying it out loud. Just giving that credit would be due. But he passed before we can, get that tape out. But
right. And the other thing too, man, is that we get approached about it all the time, and they always assume that since Caz wrote Hank's rhyme, they just think that Sylvia just put all Mike, G, and Hank in the studio, and none of them wrote their own stuff. But what they don't know is that G was his own. G was a MC before he even got with the group, and so was Mike. So they both wrote their own lyrics.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's like what happens, man. Everybody's got their Achilles heel in whatever situation. Like you was talking about the interview with my man Lamar. Sometimes you just get bad stuff attached to things that go on, and unfortunately, it becomes like a bigger situation. And that's what happened. So because of what happened in the situation, and Caz is a friend. Matter of fact, I just talked to Caz. I talked to Caz yesterday.
He done shows with us.
Not only that, man, Caz is actually working on the thing called the 50 greatest OGs, and he's actually even sent me some stuff where we talking about doing something where he wants me to put 8 bars on a song, whatever the case may be. So it's not that there's no friction, because we handled all of that. It's just that, unfortunately, people want to know, people still want to know about that, because it's not really readily out there. Where we at? We good? Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, did you guys feel it at that time? Was there a backlash within like the hip hop community?
In the community, yes. So we talk about the New York area, but you got to understand something. We were world famous,
of course. Yeah.
So we were on tour. We were doing civic centers. So where I might have got a little friction if I was at the Fever. You know what I mean? I was in front of 20,000 screaming girls. So it wasn't a big deal. It didn't happen. It didn't really start affecting us too much later on, when all of the history and the lineage and people started doing the stories, that it became more of an issue for us. But no, during that time, it was like we were so hot, and we just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, that it was actually bigger. We were bigger than the situation.
For sure.
And plus too, you have to say, even though Hank didn't write the rhymes, his voice was unmistakably. I mean, Hank had a hell of a voice now.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, and this is the thing that we tell everybody, that Hank was the early on interpreter. Later on, of course, we know for a fact ghostwriters, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. We talk about this still on Drink Champs, right?
Exactly.
Like Drake or whoever, right?
Right. Exactly. And then the other thing is that in music, period, you know what I mean? Many artists don't write their lyrics. Many artists don't write their songs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are people that have made livings, off of writing songs for other people. It's just that because of the word that you don't steal another MC's rhymes, and if you're really considered an MC, you write your rhymes. That was the first introduction to the whole thing. Is where it really starts getting bad, because realistically, I can give you we can all do a list of people that never wrote a lyric, but they're huge stars, but they can sing their ass off.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Without a doubt. No question.
So that's cool. But let me do this right here, because we got to make sure that we get this right. We got a thing where I feel like because we're like the roots in the tree, and the tree has grown and it's become, what it's become, and all the limbs on the tree keep on going, that we need to make sure that we want to let you know, EFN, that you are now officially part of the Sugarhill family, man.
No question.
No question.
Yeah, no question.
If I have my air horn,
Cuzzo action.
Yeah. So now it's Cuzzo. So whenever you see each other, we run into each other. We be like, what's up, Cuzzo? We talk about the fact that we family, man, because this thing just keeps on growing, and it keeps on growing, and it's people like yourself, man, doing the things that you're doing. You're such an impressive guy. You've done so many phenomenal things. I mean, like I said, man, I admire you. We are working to emulate what you and N.O.R.E have done with your podcast. We would hope that we can make this happen with our podcast. We've got a lot of opportunity, especially with cats like yourself coming on there, man. So I'm gonna call it right here, because I know we got to make moves and do the daggone thing.
But we need you guys in Miami at the Drink Champs table. Let's make that happen.
Let's make that happen for sure.
Come on,
no doubt.
Because ultimately, at the end of the day, I can speak for N.O.R.E. None of us would be here if it wasn't for guys like you laying down the foundation and pioneering this whole thing. So thank you guys. Thank you guys.
I appreciate the love, and I love the world for loving us the way they do. This is probably the greatest gift that a cat like me could ever have imagined. In my wildest dreams, I never thought that I would have this kind of effect on people. You know what I mean? I thought I'd do good and be a good man and grow up doing. But I mean, like, to talk to people, and when I talk to people, this is every time I'm talking to people that I'm watching, because I'm an admirer of people. I am. And whenever I see somebody do something fly, I am an admirer. So I'm a fan. I'm just letting you know that.
Absolutely.
So when I see this happening, and then the person turns around and says to me, something like that, it's awesome, man. It's awesome experience. So
no question.
I want to say thank you. Diamond, you got a question?
Yo, E. One last question.
Yeah, sure.
I love N.O.R.E. N.O.R.E is off the
yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah, N.O.R.E is cool.
Character, the kind of person he is it easier or harder to kind of get through the the day? Because G has to rein me in all the time. And I'm probably like a 50 compared to N.O.R.E's 100.
Nah, I mean, you look, we really don't edit the show, so you see it all for what it is.
Yeah, no doubt,
you know what I'm
no
saying?
doubt.
And you know, N.O.R.E, he let it fly. Like
he do. Yeah, I like N.O.R.E, man.
And as of recently, I don't know what's been going on, but we've been doing 5-hour episodes where I feel like N.O.R.E's just trying to finish 5 champagne bottles, you know, plus all the shots we drinking. He when the champagne bottles is done is when the show's over.
Oh my God.
Well, to that end, I see y'all in Miami, baby.
No doubt. No doubt. No doubt.
Hey, man. Thank you, man. Thank you again for coming on the show,
man. Been a pleasure, man. Been a pleasure.
DJ EFN, man. Such a pleasure. Such a pleasure. World, we love you for loving us, man. We thank you so much for being so connected to us. We appreciate you, man. This is the Sugar Hill Gang podcast. I'm your dude with my guys, Master G. Say goodnight, Hen Dog.
Wakanda forever, baby.
Say goodnight, T Dynasty.
Good night, T Dynasty.
Say goodnight, DJ EFN.
Yo, peace.
Good night, Cuzzo.
Peace,
good night, Cuzzo. Tell N.O.R.E I said, what's up, man? Give out love to N.O.R.E.
You guys are gonna come and say what's up in person, and we won't make that happen.
No doubt.
Make it happen.
Make it happen.
This is the Sugar Hill Gang podcast, and we are out.